Hi, welcome back to Rise and Thrive on the More Network, powered by Brown Harris Stevens. I'm your host, Daniella Schlisser, and for those of you joining us for the first time, Rise and Thrive is a motivational podcast series centered around how we and you overcome life's many obstacles and the beauty, challenges, and rewards of both professional and personal rebirth. Today, I'm joined by Melanie Roy, owner of Melanie Roy Design. Welcome, Melanie.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to talk to you about, again, something super apropos, what we like to talk about here on Rise and Thrive, which is you had a 15-year career in TV production.
Yes.
And then totally pivoted into design. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
You are a single mother of 2. I'm a single mother of 3. It's never the path you choose happily. You get there somehow on a bumpy road. And I'm wondering, was that a part of your professional shift? When did the bump happen as it relates to your professional shift?
Well, my professional shift actually occurred after I had my first son. And I guess the bump was, not realizing that working in television, I couldn't leave at 5 o'clock to have dinner. I was in television production and I really wanted to be home to raise my son. So the bump was 9/11. So it was right around that time. And I was on maternity leave during 9/11. And I I went back to work after, and the world was still a little scary and crazy. And I had a little baby at home. So I made the decision to leave HBO and be a full-time mom. Being someone that had worked my entire life, that was not easy for me because I'm a worker. And so every morning I would get dressed and I would take my child to Starbucks because I had to go somewhere.
Hey, it's Stephen Bailey from Roadway Moving and Storage. As an official moving partner of Brown Harris Stevens, we know that your clients deserve more than just a move. At Roadway Moving and Storage, we turn moving into an experience they will love. From specialized services to a white glove treatment, we've got it all covered. When you choose Roadway, you're choosing a peace of mind for your clients. Plus, our referral program is the most rewarding in the industry. Want to learn more? Shoot me an email at steven@roadwaymoving.com or visit roadwaymoving.com.
That's super interesting, though. So when you say that wasn't easy for me because I'm a worker, I feel like that's something that a lot of women in particular, but not just women, people struggle with, that guilt sort of that you feel, or that inadequacy that you feel when you choose to pull yourself out of the workforce.
It was, at the time, I had worked for a long time, and I wasn't expecting to give birth and feel like my life really had just begun. That was a shock for me.
That's so interesting.
I didn't expect it.
Did you anticipate staying at HBO?
Of course. I worked my whole life. I had worked, I worked for 15 years in television. I worked on 36 shows, and I lived in LA, and I had like a whole life in that world. I studied it for years in college. So I never anticipated not working until I gave birth. And I was just mesmerized. I said, I don't want to miss this, and I don't want to miss being a mom. And so I left. And I started to freelance a little bit. I worked on Blue's Clues. And I tried to do some things. I know, I loved it. And I had a baby at the time, so I was booking Salon. I think that, at the time it was fine. And I am very grateful that I took the time I did. Mm-hmm. But, after a few years, all of a sudden, my kids went to school, and I realized, wow, this ends. I thought they were going to be with me, And so at that point, I got very restless and started to think, what am I going to do now? And I knew I couldn't go back to television because the hours were too crazy. Right. So I made a list of everything I love to do. And I loved, design and art my whole life. I never hired a designer in my whole life. Wow. I always designed my own homes, and my friends always asked me for advice. And I used to go to antique shows and art shows. I just loved it. And I loved real estate. Real estate was something I was obsessed with.
Yeah.
So I made a list, and those were the 4 things. I said, if I'm going to do anything, these are the 4 things I want to do. So I set up meetings with people I knew in those professions so that I could find out what their day-to-day was and what it was like, because really I didn't know any other business other than show business, that.
Wow.
So that helped me to figure out which area I was going to go into.
That's a wonderful way. That's a wonderful, I think, approach to what do I do next, which I don't think everybody employs. And I think for some people, it sounds like for you, the design was low-hanging fruit. Like you were very aware. You had been doing stuff for yourself. You were aware that this was something you loved. But I do think everybody can go deep and figure out what it is that they like.
I think what people don't do is take time to figure out what they want in life.
I agree.
Not just their career, but in life. And I impress upon my kids, please think about what you want, because if you find something you love and you can make money doing it, you'll never work a day in your life.
Right.
Which is how I feel now.
Yes. Me too.
So I think it's also important, I think, to know as a woman after having a child, later in life, you can go back and reinvent yourself.
Yeah.
Which
Agreed.
Is a very, very difficult thing to do when you're a mom.
Yeah.
Because you're being pulled in so many directions. And I worked very hard to create a second career. And while most of my friends, were doing other things, I decided to go back to school.
Yeah. You went back to school for the design?
Yes, I did.
How long was that?
Well, I started off by taking a night class because I wanted to see if I even liked it. Mm-hmm. So I took a night class at NYSID, and after the class ended, I loved it. And the teacher said, he was very encouraging, more so than any of my television professors, my film professor. He said, listen, if this is something you want to do, you're going to do very well. And you're very talented. I was like, oh, that's great. So I decided to...
Being affirmed is everything, whether you have to do it for yourself.
Like later in life, at a completely unrelated, I had already done so much work in a different industry. So it was really kind of very special. And
had that industry affirmed you?
Yes, but
other than the success that you had, like was there encouragement in it?
Oh yeah, I mean, I did well, and I felt, but when I left, I guess I never thought I would be able to recapture what I had done there. It was right. I was there for so many years, mm-hmm. And I had just worked so hard and went to school and. I Xeroxed a lot of scripts and got a lot of coffee for a lot of producers, dry cleaning, did it all.
Not bad. Yeah. Grit work isn't bad.
No, I think grit work is the best.
I do too.
I mean, I started at the bottom and worked my way up. And yeah. I think that's what you have to do. And in a second career, that's what I had to do. I was working for 20-year-olds.
Really?
I went back to school and I got an internship. A few of the companies that I tried to intern for wouldn't hire me. They said, you're a full-blown television producer. You've won awards. You're going to go to the post office. We can't hire you. And I said, but I really want to learn. Wow. Please give me a chance. And I think that perhaps they didn't think that I would really do the grunt work, but right. I knew how to do that after working in television for so long. So then I was very fortunate. Somebody set up an interview for me with Coleman and Kravis. Mm-hmm. So I sat down with Ellie Coleman and some of her partners, and they said, we really like you, but we don't have anything available for the summer, but you should check back with us in the fall. And they probably didn't think I would, but I did. And they said, come on in. So I started interning while I was in school. And it took me a couple of months to realize that everyone in the office was half my age. Just because I had been out of the workforce for a while. And,
How long a while? How long were you out?
I guess it was 5 years. Mm-hmm. I guess it was 5 years that I had been doing a little freelancing and developing shows and doing things like that. But I wasn't full-time in like, at HBO in the office working on shows constantly. So, and that was, a real amazing experience.
I'll bet.
Do you have a big move coming up? I'm Scott Nadler with Cross Country Mortgage, and I've got the loan to match your dream home. Whether it's your first or your fifth, I'll make the process quick and easy. Call me today. Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
And so how old were both of your kids when you went back to school?
Probably 4 and 1, I guess.
Oh, so still very young.
Yeah,
Not
they were
both in
still
school
very
at all.
young. Well, the 4-year-old, it was either 4 and 1. So blurry.
I feel you. And were you a single mom then already?
No, I was not. I was not a single mom.
Uh-huh.
No, I was a single mom a few years after that.
And how did that impact your career? And
I would say that, balancing everything I was fortunate enough, and part of the reason I went back into this new business was because I knew I could have normal hours. The D&D building closes at 5:00, and I ended up opening, working eventually when I started my own company, working out of my home. So I could take it as quick or as slow as I wanted, and that made it, certainly a lot easier. I was there. So Did you have to make different choices than you had made when you weren't a single mom? Because I know, so I came into this business when I became a single mom. When my ex and I divorced, challenging, hugely bumpy stuff there. And I became a broker similarly to your choice, except that I didn't know I was going to like this at all. I'd never done anything like it, and I didn't choose it to like it. But I chose it because I could parent. I would be able to similar, exactly.
Totally.
When you were talking about the things that you have done in the past, I was
nothing like it,
but amazing and all very different.
Yeah, all very different.
All very different. And
yes.
I think you probably would have succeeded in any path you chose.
Thank you. I hope so.
Well, it's true.
But my bump was what was formative in choosing this, because I needed something that I could support my children with exclusively on my own and be flexible to take care of if they can't go to school, or, if someone has a play or something like that. So, but you chose design
before
in one personal framework, and then you had a different one.
Well, my first choice to work in design was to be a mom and to be home for dinner.
Yeah.
And then, I also, part of the reason why I went into design was because I bought an apartment and a house and renovated both of them and loved the process so much. By the end, I said, I definitely want to do this for a living. And I didn't know what to do with both properties because I said, I just want to do it again. I don't want to live here. I just want to do it again.
You would be my dream client.
Yeah, exactly. But I guess the second bump was, being a single mom, working and raising kids, which, I think it depends on your circumstances whether or not, any of the responsibilities are shared. And but I do think that being a single woman is I've been both. I've been a married woman working. I've been a single woman working. And it's a very different world to be on your own as a woman.
How so in the workforce? Having had both experiences, how would you describe the difference?
Everything stops at this point with me. I mean, I do everything on my own, and I run a company on my own, and it's just a different experience than having a partner. Especially, and raising children, I think, in a way, it worked to my advantage only because I've been able to spend a lot of time alone with my kids, and I've established
I feel that way too.
Such close relationships with them.
I feel that way too.
And
that is a huge
they really
silver lining.
are the reason I do anything.
Yeah. How old are they now?
They're 20 and 23.
Cute.
Yeah.
I just married off my first son yesterday.
Really? Wow. That's incredible.
And we were all,
That's-
that whole piece of how much intimacy you create as a single parent was very prominent for us this weekend when for the four of us, for my 3 children and me.
Well, so
Like-
how wonderful.
Yeah.
You did a good job.
I hope so. Thank you.
You did. That's
I hope so.
amazing.
Thank you.
This beautiful set here at Studio 1873 is brought to you by the Everset. The Everset provides full-service staging and furniture rental solutions in the New York area. We work with Brown Harris Stevens and many other top real estate firms, staging their homes to sell quickly and at the highest price possible. Our staging is affordable without sacrificing quality or design. For more information, please visit us at staging.theeverset.com or email us at staging@theeverset.com to request a free proposal.
Do you find that design, as compared to TV production, is more embracing of women in the workforce?
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It was funny because when I first started working as an intern, I would go shopping at the D&D for fabrics for the designers in the firm. And when I got to the D&D building, I said, oh my God, this is where all the women are. I mean, it's all women. And in the design industry, they really cherish experience and women who have been in the industry. I think, entertainment and others, there is a little more of a stigma, I think, with aging out.
Yeah.
But I think that also I found a tremendous camaraderie with women in the design industry. I have an incredible group of ladies that we all work together, we all support each other, and it's a great community. It's really lovely.
I think design and brokerage are very similar in many of those ways.
Do you find that?
Oh, totally.
With other
I find,
female
yes, we are a
brokers that
village,
You're
100%.
a village, same
We're
thing.
a village. We have an advantage with age. I had a much harder time. I mean, I was also new then, but I started in the business when I was 37.
Right.
It was very hard to get the respect. I think it's a little easier now, but back then, 23 years ago, you really struggled to gain the respect of buyers and sellers as compared to the veteran brokers who were in their 60s, who had been doing it for so long. Like there's a reverse ageism in brokerage. It's not at all like the rest of the workforce in my experience, but certainly seemingly like design. There is not, I don't feel any ageism in brokerage at all.
How many, but when you started,
totally.
were there a lot of women in?
Yes.
There
are more men. Yes. It was very, I think in its origin, it's a, empty nest housewife line of work.
Right.
In great part.
Yes, which
Certainly
I think, in design,
I
that's
think so,
also,
too.
there are.
I think so too. I think there's probably a lot of overlap in similarity there. And then it became, I think as divorce became more prevalent and women had to gain more financial independence more frequently, I think brokerage took on that seriousness that I think, your field probably did as well. And it's forgiving. Yeah. It's very forgiving, I find, of women. It's not, it's not the whole, don't ever cry at work kind of thing. I mean, don't cry at work, but still, it's more forgiving of stuff we have to do as parents, or we need to get away for this. I do find it.
Well, I think
forgiving.
What I do is I work with families and individuals and empty nesters, and basically I really become a part of their life, and I get to know their families and how they live, and I create environments for people to live in, and it's a very intimate job. So, I think it helps that I'm a woman and that I'm a mother, and that I can relate to a lot of different lifestyles for my clients.
Yeah.
Because, you really... it's a very personal business, and I know what you do is the same.
Yes,
because
agreed.
you're
Yes.
you're dealing with financials, you're dealing with homes and lifestyles, and you really do get to learn a lot about the people that you work with.
Absolutely.
And hopefully enrich their lives
Yes.
by providing wonderful places for them to live their lives.
Agreed. Have you found it difficult? And I think this is a challenge across the board when you're going through something personally, like the move from being, to become a single mom. Is it hard to still be that person in the workspace that has the ear and the patience for somebody else, as opposed to, sort of feeling the stuff that you're going through? Is it distracting? Is it a challenge? Like, did you find that difficult to continue doing the job when you were going through stuff personally?
I think everyone deals with changes differently and anxiety differently. And I think, when you have changes in your life, it creates incredible anxiety for most people.
Agreed.
Which is also, I have people that are moving and changing their homes. And I think everybody has a different way of processing that and dealing with that. I'm one of the people that I work very well under pressure. I actually work better under pressure, which is why television production was such a great business for me, because, there was so much pressure to get a show up or to get someone in the seat for a talk show or, when you were shooting something live. And so for me, any type of pressure, I'm best under pressure. So it doesn't affect the way I work at all, actually. I'm able to completely focus under stress and duress.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's a gift.
But,
I also
that's
it's a comforting respite for me, at least. The work is distracting.
I
when
love
there's stuff.
what I do. I mean, I
that's great.
feel every day I love what I do. I work all the time, and it's not work because I enjoy it so much. There are other things I don't enjoy, and it's hard for me to do them. But when it comes to work, it's just easy.
That's great.
Because and that's how I know at least I am doing the right thing.
Yeah.
I found the right place for me.
Was it quick to realize that you had found the right place?
It was quick. When I went to school, I realized, wow, this is really something I like and I'm interested in. And then when I went to Coleman and Kravis, I realized this is definitely what I want to do. And when they actually took me on an installation for my first time, I watched the designers, place items, which is something that we all do. However, it's something that I used to do for many years. When I first got married in our home, I would always move a vase or a book and tilt it. And at the time, my husband said, "There's something wrong with you. Why do you keep doing that?" I said, "Because that's the way it's supposed to be. That's where it belongs." And it wasn't until I started working in design, and I actually was working on a show house, the Hampton Designer Show House, and I walked around and I saw all these designers moving and placing. I was like, I'm home. I'm totally home. This is exactly where I belong.
Isn't that great how the behavior is the same, but in the right environment, you're understood?
In the right environment, you get paid to do it and asked where it should go. But I do think it's so important, had I not done the work to really try to figure out what I wanted to do next and felt it was possible. I look at my life in two ways. If I didn't have my children, I can't even imagine, because it's been such a special, wonderful journey for me. But if I didn't end up working in design, I would have missed out on really such a glorious, incredible, important, enriching part of my life. So I just think it's very important for women, especially when they have children and leave the workforce, which they do all the time, to try to keep yourself in it and try to find what you love and what your passion is, because you really can have a second career. You really can have a second start.
I agree.
Takes a lot of work. And humility, but you have to. But it's so worth it.
What do you think was the hardest thing for you when you went back to work?
When I went back to work, I think it was my lunch hour. It was my lunch hour because I worked in a company where you really didn't go out for lunch and you only had an hour. And I still had 2 children that were, in school and, not being able to always go to pickup. And, so I think there was a trade there for me that was hard. It was a difficult thing for me, even though they were a little older. So I felt like, I was there for every drop off and every pickup when they were in nursery school and kindergarten. But you have to make a trade. And, on the weekends, maybe I would spend more time with them. Mm-hmm. I would do something else special with them. I used to take my son to Serendipity.
My father used to take me to Serendipity.
We used to go. I used to take him as a date. I'd say, we're going. This is our time.
When we first started Excel Real Property Management 11 years ago, we did so with the intention of protecting the investment community. Here at Excel Real Property Management, we focus specifically on serving the needs of individual apartments, townhouse, and small multifamily building owners both in Manhattan and select neighborhoods of Brooklyn. Our services encompass everything: rent collection, expense payment, handling maintenance and repair, turnover between tenants, insurance needs. Literally anything that an investor would typically handle him or herself, we take care of for them. Whether you hold one individual apartment or a rental building that houses 20 units, Excel is here to help with all of your specific needs.
Was it a conversation you had with them in advance, or at any point did you explain to them that your availability was going to be different during the week, but you would have
Not really. I didn't explain that to them.
Did they react?
They did a little. I mean, they realized what I was doing, and then I started to bring them everywhere with me. Mm-hmm. So I started to schlep them to design events and art shows. And on the weekends, I would bring them to antique shows. Mm-hmm. And so my kids, and I still do actually, I bring them to a lot of events now. Fun. And they're both very, they're interested and they understand. Mm-hmm. And so it became something I could share with them.
Did they ever comment or on your lesser availability? Like, I'm interested in that space where we change something and how that impacts the rest of our relationships and the people around us.
Well, by the time I made that change my change was a result of their change. If they could have stayed home with me mm-hmm. and been 3 and 4, I would have just been doing that still. Right. I mean, but as soon as they started going to school, mm-hmm. I realized, they were leaving. So I was like, okay, I can do this now. Yeah. I have the time. So I waited until they both were kind of out on mm-hmm. their, going to at least nursery school.
Yeah. And what do you suppose made you need to do something again when they went to school, as opposed to, because so many people pull out of the workforce when they have a family change, and they don't necessarily go back.
I know.
And I wonder what do you think made you have a need to go back?
I always loved, I was trained to work. That was how I was raised. Mm-hmm. So I started working when I was 16, and I worked every summer. My friends all went to Europe. I worked. Really? And I was kind of raised that way with that ethic. So, and I also love working. Mm-hmm. So for me, not working was very challenging, even though I was enjoying my day-to-day of being with my children. I was a little restless with the spare time. So for me, I tried to go to lunch. I took bridge with a big group, and then I was a bridge dropout. And I said, I can either play bridge or I'm going to go back to school and become an interior designer. Yeah. And it just, I'm just much happier when I'm working. But I also chose professions that are very social. I love to be around people, and I love being creative. So I think all those passions kind of work together in what I do now for work.
And what made you choose production?
I went to school for film and television. And
what made you
I
choose
really
that?
went to school for film. It was what I knew I wanted to do. I wanted to be a film producer. I wanted to have my own production company and be a film producer. So I went to Emerson College in Boston. Mm-hmm. I studied film and I made films. And at that point, we were splicing film. And then I got my first job. I got my first internship in Boston working at a commercial production company. Mm-hmm. And I realized once I went into film that the pace of film was not for my personality.
Is it slower or faster?
It's much slower.
Slower than television?
Slower. Oh, yes. So that's why I then transitioned into television because, you could write it and shoot it and get it on the air. But with film, I was reading scripts for a while for a producer. I worked for directors, and by the time you actually got a film off the ground, shot and done was years. It took years.
Really?
Yeah. And that was before digital,
mm-hmm.
even though I'm sure the process is still, I'm not in the business anymore, but the process is still probably still slow, I would mm-hmm. imagine, in some regards. But I think that's, how I actually transitioned in entertainment. Mm-hmm. And then I ended up in television, which I loved.
Do you think if production was more forgiving schedule-wise that you would have gone back to that?
Well, it's funny. Everybody works remote now. Mm-hmm. They didn't have that when I left. And I did think to myself, wow, if I could have worked in the studio 3 days a week mm-hmm. and from home 2 days a week, I might have stayed.
Right.
I might have
stayed.
stayed.
See, that's so interesting.
I know.
Like how we come to choose what we do in our next chapter and how temporal that is.
I mean, it was a blessing that this happened because I'm supposed to be doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
However, if I had that flexibility that everyone has today, I don't think I would have left. I would have balanced it enough so that I could be home and be a mom.
Yeah.
I mean, that was my priority at the time. So it's interesting. It was a different world. Yeah. I say that all the time.
And that's also in my mind a commentary on embracing the journey. The things that get us. I have this little thing that I made on just by typing on my bulletin board upstairs in my office that says trust the process, because I really believe there's stuff that you just have to abandon yourself to, that you're getting navigated in the right way. So when you think about that you were very successful in production, and at the moment that you had to choose a next chapter, that format didn't work. It does now, but it didn't.
So hard to walk away.
But you ended up in a space that you feel you are so much more meant for it for now, is what I'm hearing. Yeah.
And I never, ever would have imagined that I would have found something that I was more suited to do, mm-hmm. that's more fulfilling. I would never have imagined this if you told me this,
I love that. I would have never imagined. I have so much of that myself.
Never would have imagined that this would have been my
Isn't that so
path.
Great?
It is great.
It's so
great.
But
trusting the process is not easy.
No.
I didn't. I questioned everything. And I did, it was... I knew when I was doing it that I loved it, but I didn't know where it would take me. And I always questioned, should I, would I?
Really?
I should on myself sometimes.
I get it.
What do you really need to know about buying or selling a home? First, it's serious business. And it's complicated. There's a lot of money on the table, and emotion too. You need an agent who knows the ropes. So, whether you're buying or selling your home, work with professionals who have a mastery of the craft.
So what was that like? What was the questioning like?
I mean, I think it was really, and I still feel sometimes, I think it was really, when you invest so much time in something, whether it's a career or a relationship, or once you walk away, you can't help but turn around and have a feeling like, wow, I went to college for 4 years. I worked on 36 television shows and I walked away. Right. So, wow. And I do think now, like, I love where I am with my business. And we're, growing. But, I had 15 years out of this business. Yeah. So, I think, you can't help but look back and say,
Yeah. And how did you stay the current path when you were looking back? When you were looking back and questioning, what am I doing? And I've got so much invested in that, and it's what I studied. What do you think kept you on the path forward?
The fact that I did enjoy what I was doing. I mean, I did. If I didn't love it, I wouldn't have been able to continue on that journey. I also, was very blessed to have the opportunity to work with Ellie Coleman, who really was an incredible mentor and somebody I had such tremendous respect for, and ironically had started out by writing scripts in the film business. Oh,
really?
Yes.
Oh, so you had commonality too.
Well, but I also had an opportunity to learn from her and, work in her company, which, could let me see if things went right, where I might have the opportunity of going in the industry. So I was very fortunate that she gave me an opportunity.
That's wonderful.
And, she was the best. It was like going to Harvard.
Yeah.
Working at Coleman and Kravis.
So it was that as well. It was where you landed.
I was very, very
And what
fortunate.
would you suggest, like if somebody asked you, somebody looking to make a career choice and change, which I think, which so many people are, and I think a lot of people who listen here are, what would you recommend when people have those moments that they question, what am I doing?
To keep moving forward. You have to keep moving forward and keep going. Don't stop. That is the most important thing. I think we all have those very dark times in our life. Yeah. And if you just keep going, all of a sudden, sometimes you say, I would never have thought that I would come into this. And that will happen. You just have to stay in it. And you have to keep focusing and surrounding yourself with support. Ironically, somebody came to me who runs a design school and said, I have a student who is very discouraged. She has 3 children. This is a second career for her. She's in school, and she's really questioning whether she should continue on that path. So would you talk to her? Because I know you have the same path. So I said, yes, absolutely. Tell her to call me. So I spoke with her, and then I met with her, and I just hired her to intern for me.
Oh, how wonderful.
So that I can kind of pay it forward and help her, learn a little more about.
And what did you tell her when she said, when she came to you with her doubts?
I told her my story, and I told her to keep in it and to stay in it and to move forward and not to be discouraged. You have to, this is when the most important time to keep moving forward. And, I assured her also that I would be there as a support for her. And then I thought about it, and after I met with her, she was so talented and lovely. I said, you know what, why don't you come with us and, intern while you're in school, and you can see, how the business works. And I wanted to give her an opportunity similar to what I had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it sounds like from your experience and then what you've been able to give her, that you find mentorship very significant.
I think mentorship is essential.
So do I.
I think it's.
So do I.
And I've had a lot of female mentors. People talk about women not supporting women, but in entertainment and television, I had a lot of female mentors. And I think we have to all support everybody and also younger generations to be there for them and show them the way. It's more valuable than anything.
I agree. And I think it's important when you are creating a new path for yourself or a new chapter, a new line of work, or to find somebody you admire.
Absolutely.
And to, try as best you can.
Try as best you can to, you know.
And that can be even from a distance. I think if you can, you know, if it's somebody you don't have access to personally, you can follow them on Instagram. You can read their books if
LinkedIn,
they have any, or
you can, connecting with people is different now than it was when I, first started working. Period. I used to call people and ask them if I could meet them for a cup of coffee and just ask some questions. And, it's a little different now. You actually have a lot of resources, but finding a commonality on LinkedIn and finding people that went to your alma mater or, it's networking is essential.
Yes.
And finding a mentor and I think that also has a lot to do with people thinking and finding what they really want to do. Obviously I have children, you have children, and I've expressed to them, I want you to really think about what you want to do, what you love, what's your passion, and find people that do what you want to do and go talk to them.
Exactly.
Study them, go meet them, ask if you can shadow them. I mean, those things are very important. Obviously, not only for work, but also just for life.
I completely agree.
I always, people sometimes just never think about what they want.
I completely agree.
And you really have to take the time to do that because it's the difference between really wasting your time on a path that is not going to lead you to your passion.
And I think embracing that whatever you left behind for a reason, even if you don't fully get it. Which in sort of that trust the process thing.
Trust the process is a hard one. I mean, I think it's a hard one. I think it's a great one. You just have to think if you left it behind, there was a reason.
That's what and even if it looks good.
Even if you have to tell yourself that every day.
Yes, because I mean, if one takes someone like you as an example, you were very successful in production. So you probably had to, sit with, there's a reason I'm not doing it anymore. And on some days, it might feel foolish that I'm not doing it anymore. Or on some days, it might be very attractive to go back and do it again. But there's a reason I left that behind.
Yes.
I think that's,
I think what's important is to keep moving forward.
I agree.
With everything in your life.
I agree.
And sometimes, even if you don't know everything,
I agree.
To keep going. You have to keep going.
Yes, I agree. I agree. Thank you so much. It has been such a treat to talk to you. I feel such kinship.
I know. I feel the same way.
Thank you, Melanie.
I'm honored that you
I hope our paths cross often.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Their phone or always leaves your text on red? Leaves your text on red.
Built this working group with $1,000 loan.
Tell us a little bit about how you actually came from.
Welcome to the build-up, John Roy.
Thanks for having me.
We're coming to you here from Studio 1873.
It's not 57% over 2.7 million.
So then, cheers.